Hey, how's it going, guys? We're out here on the upper sacrifice yard, taking a look today at moving our cattle back out onto the hillside. They've been in the barn and on the far side of the property where I hadn't grazed them previously, over in the forest and then down along the road pasture. So I touched up the fence over there. I'm going to replace it fully this summer. But with it being touched up, that ought to take care of it for now. And it did. They didn't get out. So I've shut them out of there. They've been there for a while, and I've been supplementing their feed with some of our last hay, just to make sure that they have plenty to eat. And then now we're on to the next set of rotating. So we've got the three of them over here on pasture. Let's see if I can get you where you're not in the sun. Let's see. So we got the three cattle over here. There we go. Onto some pretty good grass that's coming up. And then you can see just up past the bully there, there's some taller grass as well. Trying out a new fence line. It's a type of fence called a smart fence by Gallagher. And I'd seen them in use, or something like them in use, in Europe. One of the fellows that I watch, who's part of the kind of the permaculture and whatnot movement. Tremendous resource for education, Richard Perkins. Check out his channel sometime, Ridgedale Permaculture. Just a massive amount of wealth of knowledge to download. But anyway, he'd used that kind of a fence before, and so I'd seen it in the local store and decided to try it out. And I'll show you kind of what it is. So essentially, it's a fence that zips out, and you can kind of see this guy right down here. So this is the end post. It's a fence that you set and you pull out, and it's got all the posts and all the wire built into it on a rolling system. Really pretty sharp. So far, very pleased with it. The animals seem to respect it. It's kind of almost identical to the measurements I ended up working out for my cattle and my goats, as far as the height of the 4 strings, which is pretty crazy. And so I've been really pleased with it. I just got them in here. They've kind of gone up and looked at it. They know what it is. They're very, very aware. I just spent about an hour or two going around and fixing damage over the past couple of weeks where I've been very busy at work, and I haven't had them out on the pasture. Damage that was done by wildlife and windfall from branches to the trees. So beautiful day out here on the farm, on the pasture, and just gorgeous in the orchard. I'll see if I can get a little clip later on from the standpoint of the orchard, but you can see behind me here, we're up above the barn, and this is a plum. It's super early. I think I've seen 1 bee on it. It's just too early for bees to even be out and about. Maybe a native bee or a bumbler here and there, and then some flies are gonna be all the pollination that tree's gonna get if its bloom season ends before it heats up some more. Today's the warmest day thus far this year at 55 degrees. Absolutely gorgeous, but it's still February, and in my area, spring doesn't really start until March. Typically, you get some snows or frost into March. So I've got a few plants that are coming out too. I wish they would not, but I'm hoping that it stays mild enough that they don't take any damage or winter injury from it. But yeah, so just super pleased with this fence so far. Great design, easy to put in. Took me maybe 5 minutes, including figuring out how the thing worked and how not to break it. It does have metal with plastic reinforced posts. So I guess it's metal reinforced in the plastic. And anything that's going to be designed that way, however expensive, you're just going to have to be really cautious with when you're installing so that you don't break it. But from the standpoint of the resilience for the animals, it's great. I love it so far. We'll see how it does over time. It's going to allow me to take and hypersection the paddocks that I have without having to add additional permanent fence or really monkey around too much, take too much time adding in the like temporary fence, which was something that the paddock, they've got the hill pretty well apportioned, but I wanted more intensively rotate the animals through, not like a week per paddock, which is what I've been doing, but more like a day or two per section of paddock. And the impact that will have is that the animals will intensively graze it down all at once, but they're not gonna damage the grass by cutting it clear to the ground. In some places, while they ignore some of the rest of it, it'll more evenly graze the grass and the hillside, which will mean that the grass that they like isn't injured, or over time, it's not cleared out in favor of grass that they don't like, which is what can happen when you have grazing that occurs. Just animal will always preferentially take what they would like to take first, which makes sense. I mean, we do it too, but you just don't want them to damage and graze out the grass that is their favorite. I mean, that they're getting the most nutrition from what they're selecting. So this is me working at getting a more intensive rotational grazing for the animals, the goats and the cattle. We just got some chickens, super cool. I'm very excited about that. They're just, of course, little baby chicks. Got them from the local store, 4 different varieties. Just kind of test out and see some things, whether, what kind of temperaments, how good they are at egg laying, that sort of a thing. And then I'll do some more research later on when I get time to do that, and maybe build up an egg mobile that would be designed for our hillside. Obviously, it would have to be designed to account for a slight slope, which is not necessarily something that my extreme skill in engineering inclines me to be able to make easily. But we're going to go ahead and figure that out probably next year, once we have more experience with chickens on the farm. So what else we got going on? A couple of shipments have already come in and have been put into the orchard. Some trees arriving today. Not a lot of trees this year, because I'm just working on filling in what I'd already planted the rest of the way. So we're looking at more bush, vine, that kind of a thing, blackberries, strawberries, raspberries, that kind of a plant. And of course currants and gooseberries and everything else that it would be a little bit less common, but that's kind of what we're about here, is a broad selection, including things that are new for people or are harder for them to find. So so that's what we're working on in the orchard. That and weeding out some of the rows didn't get mulched last year, and that was a combination of time on my part and our access on the property for people to bring in material. It needs improved. So there's space for them to put it, but we turned off a couple people who probably would have kept bringing stuff for us. If the place for them to get to dump it was easier to handle. So I've been taking that feedback, and we've got some plans to make it easier for them, and then hopefully that will result in more stuff. I'm also going to try and reach out to a couple of them and just see if they'd be willing to look at a more permanent arrangement, where I would pay them a small amount and then take all of their stuff, because I'll use every last bit of it that they can bring, and it's worth a little bit of money, not worth what you'd buy from a bark place or something like that, a chip and compost place, but definitely worth being monetized. So yeah, that's what we're working on right now: planting, weeding, mulching, getting the animals back out onto this upper pasture, and continuing to rotate them as we head into what apparently is spring. It's here, and just continuing to learn and improve techniques. So big projects coming up in the spring. I don't have any major vacations this year, kind of a learning from last year, just to hold off on some of that until the weather is markedly better and it matches up better with my ability to get away from work in town. Just the life of retail has particular demands. So yeah, that's what we're doing, where we're at. This tree behind me has an incredible fragrance, and when it's slightly windy like it is today, you can really smell it just all the way across the hillside. It's wonderful. I remember that from last year. I put up some pictures, I think, but yeah, I'll be excited to get to show everybody more pictures and some more videos as all the plants start breaking bud, and we get to, you know, further into the season here, and showing what the hillside on year 2 really starting to take shape and what it's going to look like. And yeah, I think that's all for now.